Welcome back to another episode of Practically 30 with your host, me, Tristan, and my co host, Emily. And today, we're going to learn some practical life skills together. We're going to talk about our experiences, and maybe we're going to have a fun time. Maybe. I don't know. Some days.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. Because the topic today that we're going to be talking about is cooking. And meal prep. They're kind of go hand in hand, but we kind of want to talk about our experiences, cooking at home, making meal prep at home, especially if you have a job or you're in school. Those are kind of the times when you're often pretty time strapped to find a meal, especially a good one and one that's pretty, what's called economical, right? Rather than having to spend a ton of money on food every time. So I think it's going to be a fun episode.
I do too.
All right. So to get started, the thing we want to talk about first, in my experience, I think one of the first things is figuring out what you have to work with. Now, maybe you have some appliances at home that you already have. Maybe you have, utensils and pans that you're already used to. But I do want to talk a little bit about kind of our experiences and what we like to roll with. What are some good appliances that I have had and I recommend almost everyone has because they're just great to work with. They're often very fast and they're pretty cheap a lot of the time. And I want to start this with I think my favorite appliance that I own.
Yeah.
And I've had only two of these at this point, and the old one didn't die. It was just small. I've always had an air fryer.
Love an air fryer. One of my favorite things ever.
Yeah, and if you don't know what an air fryer is, first of all, go look it up because they're awesome. An air fryer is essentially a way to cook food. It's almost like a mini oven, I suppose, but...
Yeah, I guess. Like oven / I don't know if you'd call it like a pressure cooker, kinda.
A little bit, yeah.
It's basically like a baby oven / microwave that cooks it gives you like the crispiness you want that you can't get in the microwave, but like with the speed of a microwave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things when I first discovered air fryers was because a microwave is pretty instant. I'll be honest, you're not going to beat the speed of a microwave in most options, but an air fryer heats up in, at least the air fryer I have, for example, takes literally seconds. Within like a minute, you'll have it fully heated, and then it just cooks as if it's in the oven. You get, to your point, like kind of that crispiness, especially if you're cooking something like one of my favorites is actually making like homemade fries in the air fryer. You just put raw potato in there. You do some prep before that, but then it just makes it just nice and crisp.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I love it too. I think growing up, I used to be obsessed with toaster ovens.
Ooh, that's another
I used
good one.
to really, really want a toaster oven. And I've gotten to use a few. Like, there's one at my work, and like I've used a few before that. But like, I even think an air fryer is better. Like, it's a toaster oven, and then even better. I still really love a toaster oven, and I still really want a toaster oven. But like, I think like if you're going to have an appliance that takes up counter space, because I feel like counter space is really prime real estate in your kitchen. Like, the only thing I feel like that like is really worth the counter space it's going to consume is an air fryer. Like, that's how important I think it is.
I don't even disagree with that, to be honest. And air fryers are often taller than they are wide, too, compared to a toaster oven.
Yeah.
So you get a lot more counter space back. And they somewhat have some overlap in their functions a little bit, but you do have some benefits of going with one specific one or another.
Yeah, that's true.
I will say neither of them quite replace a toaster, which is another item I recommend. Even if it's a cheap, just small little toaster, nothing quite toasts bread like a function-built toaster.
That's true.
And
you can even get those at like garage sales and stuff. Like, you don't need a nice toaster. Just get something that fits bread.
Yeah. I think another item that I have found is really useful is I do think you should have some sort of, I'm going to say ice tray, but just something that makes ice.
Okay. I'll agree with that. I don't know about ice tray,
something.
but I'll agree with you need ice. Yeah.
Yeah. And not because, I'm not one of those people. I don't throw ice in every drink I drink. I don't always love it if my water is super cold. It's not my thing. But occasionally you just need ice for something. And it's nice that,
what else are you using ice for besides drinks?
If you have something like a food processor or a blender, throw some ice in there. You
Okay.
change the texture a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. You're right.
Just gives you some options. We live in very sunny California where the temperatures get pretty warm.
Yeah.
Just having some nice ice available to you, even if it's just an ice tray, they're small. You kind of slide them wherever in your freezer you have room, and then within a few hours you'll have just a small bit of ice.
Yeah.
I don't recommend a ice maker because ice makers can be relatively large and pretty cumbersome. They're very similar to a fridge where they have refrigerant running through them, and those get messy. But just having an ice tray. I think that's kind of off the top of my head. That's kind of the major appliances I really like. Obviously, having an oven and stove is always useful to just have, but in most places you'll have that built in. Generally speaking, if you don't, there are portable like induction stoves, and those are just awesome. You plug them in, and now you've got a stove, and it's portable too.
Yeah, I will say like I've seen studios that like will have a stovetop but not an oven, and I'm someone that like I really like to bake, so like I kind of not need but like prefer having an oven in my house. I will say like an air fryer can replace an oven in a lot of ways for that stuff if you're like willing to cook like single serving things. So like instead of making like a tray of cookies, I can very easily make like 4 cookies at a time in an air fryer, and it still gives me like the capabilities of an oven without actually having the oven in the apartment.
That's something I hadn't even thought about.
Yeah.
A lot of these items, a lot of these appliances too, to that point, you can kind of use for a lot of different things, even if they weren't purpose built for that. That's actually a really good call out. And honestly, probably something a toaster oven would beat an air fryer at if you do more baking.
That's true. Yeah, that too.
So for your purposes, I think the other thing that is useful to know too is what kind of utensils, what kind of cookware do you also have, or perhaps are looking to purchase. I think in every kitchen, you need at least one saucepan.
I agree with that, but I think even before that, like getting out of college, I've been to people's apartments where they also like don't have very many like forks, spoons, knives. I think the first thing you need to get when you like get your own place and like are kind of like adulting is to have like multiple of each type of like flatware.
That's a good call out. Yeah.
Like not even like the purposes of like entertaining other people, but just because like if you're like me and you like you're not very on top of your dishes all the time, it's nice to have multiples of like the basics. So just make sure you get that before you kind of like start adventuring into all these fancy, not even appliances, but like fancy utensils, cookwares, things like that. That's the number one. But yes, saucepan, definitely agree.
Saucepan, I think a pot as well. And I will say for all these items, I would buy one that is, you don't need to go crazy expensive, but I do think getting one that'll last you a long time can be a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm no professional cook, not going to pretend to be. In truth be told, the only things I know are things I've done research on. They're, I think, the cheapest pan you're going to be able to find, and if it's all you can afford, then hey, do it. But the non-stick variants tend to be the most affordable. The biggest issue with those is that non-stick coating that's pretty common, from my understanding, eventually will just start to peel. That is just a reality of that style of pan and that style of material. The best and longest lasting, from my understanding, actually tend to be stainless steel. Now, to be clear, they're not the end-all be-all. There might be other materials. There's also cast iron is another one. I personally love cooking on a cast iron. If you don't know what that is, it is just straight up an iron pan. It is very heavy, but it retains heat and can go up to temperatures that other pans can't quite. I would not recommend it as your daily, everyday cookware because it is a pain to clean.
Yeah.
But
it's heavy too.
It's very heavy, yeah. But it's very, I would say, purpose-built. Although I have heard there are some people who swear by cooking even just things like eggs on it, and they swear that it makes everything better. But from a cleaning perspective, if you've never seen a cast iron get cleaned, you are not supposed to use things like soap and water on it. You're supposed to use like basically an iron chain and clean it. It's a whole process. Stainless steel, from my understanding, is kind of a nice middle ground because it's not full stainless steel because steel actually is a terrible conductor of heat on its own. but it has essentially aluminum intermixed with stainless steel for kind of that center base that would touch the heat, essentially. And you get the benefits of stainless steel, which is that it's very durable and you can kind of throw them around. And I mean that quite literally. It's very hard to damage them. You can clean it with the hard side of the sponge and everything, and it lasts. And it also does kind of the cool heat properties of aluminum, which is that it spreads very evenly. So you kind of get the benefits of both worlds in a way. They are a tad more expensive. However, I will throw out IKEA apparently is well known for their stainless steel pans.
I did not know that, actually.
This was something I found that a lot of people swear by them. A lot of people have had their stainless steel. To be very clear, it seems like they're very cheap end. You should avoid at all cost. But if it's all you can afford, then they seem to be decent. They just won't last as long. But it seems specifically their IKEA 365 line, and there's one variation above that as well, but those are $80, $90 per pan. But the 365 stuff is $30 to $40, and some people swear by them. They've had them for over 10 years.
That's crazy.
So,
okay.
Good saucepan, good pots. Keeping in mind that if you don't want to have to replace them every few years, it could be worth the extra investment.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
The other items are things like, think of your tongs, for example. Think of if you're going to need spoons, if you're going to be stirring things in pots. There's quite a few of those that you should consider getting, especially depending on what you're cooking. If, you're mostly cooking things like pasta, maybe you just need the spoon. But I always think having a good pair of tongs around, and if you go the route of getting a stainless steel one, you can also get stainless steel tongs, which will last much longer than plastic.
Mm-hmm.
I've also found a spatula. It's pretty useful too.
Yeah. I'd say for me, spoon, spatula, what's the other thing you just said? Tongs. And then I always like having the silicone spatulas to make things with, mix things with. I feel like I don't really use a whisk. And if I do need a whisk, I just use a fork to make whatever I'm whisking. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that because you do far more baking than I do. Yeah. Do you ever find yourself using a whisk in a baking
Usually
item?
not. No. I either whip it with the silicone. I'm assuming it's silicone. I don't even know if that's true.
Yeah.
But the rubbery one, I either use that or I just use a fork. So I don't find it essential. Granted, it probably helps with more niche things. But for basic everyday life, I've never found myself hunting down a whisk.
Yeah, so, into that beginning call out, getting a good pair of just utensils that forks, knives, spoons that you have may be worth getting a nicer one so you can use your forks as mini whisk, essentially.
Yeah.
I think I think the next thing is, okay, we have our appliances, we have our utensils, we have our cookware. I think the next thing is, well, where do we go and buy food? Where do we get things like spices? Where do we get all that? As I kind of spoke about in the last episode, I love Costco. Costco has a lot of bulk food. However, we will be throwing out maybe a few other options that might be good to buy food at. I am personally a fan of chicken. Chicken, I would say, is my primary food through and through.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. What would you say is your primary go-to if you had to choose one?
Food? Protein?
Primary meal.
I don't cook as much as Tristan does, so I'm the frozen food girl. I just reheat or throw in the toaster oven whatever I'm eating for lunch or dinner that day. So I'm a pasta person. I'm a frozen dino nugget person. Yeah. I also make a lot of rice. But rice is pretty easy. Also, would you say, as far as appliances go, rice cooker is important?
Ooh.
Where would you rank that on your list?
I think I've always had a rice cooker.
Okay.
It's actually a very good call. I don't think about it much because if you get a decent rice cooker, it kind of sits in the background and does exactly what it's supposed to do. I will say, if you get some rice cookers will also have extra, I'll call them add-ons, and you can use it to also steam things like vegetables and even potato. So maybe actually I would put rice cooker maybe near the top of my list of appliances. I don't know if I could put it I think I would put it below right below the air fryer.
Okay.
I think I like the air fryer more, but I've never been without a rice cooker.
So air fryer number 1.
For me, it would be an air fryer.
Okay.
Yeah. But rice cooker?
Rice cooker 2.
Close number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have those two, in my opinion, if you have those two, and actually, we didn't talk about a microwave.
Oh, that's so true.
Microwaves, I gotta say, they don't always make the best quality of the food. They don't give you that crispiness. But if you need to get in 5 minutes, cook, pull it out, eat it, I can't say anything beats the microwave.
Okay, so microwave number 1 or air fryer 1, microwave 2? Or microwave 3?
Oh, this is so tough. I think if I had to pick, I think I'd have the microwave over everything else. Because you can even cook rice in a microwave.
Yeah. I think it didn't think about it because like a lot of places come with a microwave.
Also
but like
true.
I've also lived in places that don't.
Yeah.
And so like literally moving in, being like, oh shoot, I didn't even realize I needed a microwave.
I think I'd have to put microwave at 1 based on that.
Air fryer 2.
I think I'd do air fryer 2.
Rice cooker 3.
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to have only 2 of them, I think I would go microwave and rice cooker, though. But I like the air fryer.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like the quality of an air fryer, but I don't know if I could trade it over. If I had to choose between those two, it would be the microwave, and I think I'd have the rice cooker, so I have, rice, essentially.
I think I agree with the rankings, but I think if I had to only pick 2, I would choose microwave and air fryer.
You do air fryer
Yeah.
and microwave. Interesting.
Because this might make some people mad, but I can cook rice in the microwave.
It's a fair point.
So, like if I got, minute rice or whatever, I could have my rice with my microwave and then I'd also get things crispy through the air fryer.
Ooh.
And I could still do my baking in the air fryer.
I've always had access to a stove.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could cook rice on a stove, too. You might
That's
be winning
true.
me. You might be winning me over with this idea. Maybe it's the air fryer microwave combo. Yeah. Okay. I'm convinced. I think I would do the microwave and the air fryer over the rice cooker.
Okay.
Awesome.
Anyway.
So where to buy food?
Yeah.
So I eat a lot of chicken. I tend to cook chicken from raw. Is generally the way I cook chicken, and the reason I do that is it tends to be the most cost-effective way. We'll get into meal prep a little bit later, but for me, it tends to be the most cost-effective way to do meal prep and kind of cover all the food categories that I think I need anyways. So I tend to go chicken. I do frozen vegetables.
Okay.
I just find that non-frozen, like refrigerated vegetables, they just don't last as long. And there doesn't really seem to be a difference to me that much.
Mm-hmm.
And then, rice for me would be the other thing that I would consider as part of my essential kit, I guess, if I was talking meal prep. In terms of other foods, right, I'm not a big snack person. I don't really eat that many snacks, but I do love granola bars, to be honest.
Oh, really?
That would be my one. If I had to choose a snack, it would be a granola bar.
That's so. I feel like that is pretty low on my list of snacks.
What will be your top?
My top snack? I really like chocolate covered almonds.
That's a good one though. Yeah.
Or like pretzels. I like pretzels.
I could do pretzels.
Yeah.
The stick pretzels for me are the favorite. Good road trip snack too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do find for most of these things, like Costco sells everything in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will say the one it's a double-edged sword though, because if you buy a bulk from Costco, especially if something that expires, you could find it going bad if you don't get through it quickly enough.
Yeah, especially like produce. Like I have beef with avocados now because every time I buy a bag of avocados, it goes bad way too fast. Or like bananas, literally any like fruit or vegetable. I feel like as soon as I buy it, I'm like stressed about eating it. Bread too.
Bread's a big one.
Because at Costco, I think you have to buy like 2 loaves.
It's always 2.
Yeah. Like it stresses me out.
I have found this is going to be a little bit of a tip. Essentially anything I can throw in the refrigerator, I throw in the refrigerator. my bread lives in the refrigerator, which may be a bit of a hot take.
I don't know if I like that.
It does make the bread lose some of its moisture, so you get a little bit of a more dry texture. I found that toasting it solves most of that.
Yeah.
But also then bread just lasts forever if you throw it in the fridge.
Yeah. Like if I know I'm gonna use it to like make like French toast, grilled cheese, regular toast, then I'm okay throwing it in the fridge until I do that. But if I like know I'm gonna use it for like a sandwich for lunch, I'm a little more
tough.
like fearful of putting it in the refrigerator.
I will say too, there is benefits to buying smaller quantities of items too. To your point, maybe you just get a single loaf and it takes you, a week or two to get through that loaf. Even if it's less food, and even, frankly, even if it seems like it's a worse deal than something like Costco, if the food goes bad because you don't like it in the fridge, then it may actually be a better value to buy it in a single loaf. Or, alternatively, you could buy 2 loaves from Costco. Maybe one goes in the fridge as
Yeah, that's true.
you're saving one, and maybe you keep the other one out. There's a lot of ways to work around this to get the most out of food. You just kind of need to dig into it. If you're a sandwich person, finding a way to preserve all your sandwich ingredients in the way that is the best, and also if you just want a good sandwich, right? But Costco's a good place. I will say there's quite a few markets. I think my favorite from a value standpoint, I really like Stater Brothers and Smart and Final.
I don't think I've ever really bought anything from Smart and Final.
I believe it is Smart and Final that I think has the best value. If you're gonna buy like a giant bag of rice, this is not even a joke. I think it's like the 25 pound of brown rice. And you can just get that bag. I think it's like $30. And if you're, doing like 1 or 2 cups in your rice cooker, or maybe your pan if you went the route of just having a pot, you will probably last a few months on that one bag.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good deal. I know Costco sells, I think it's white rice in giant bags, but those are massive bags. I think they're like 50 or 75 pounds or something like that. And if you're a person living on your own, or even if you're living with like roommates, it's a lot of rice to get through. And technically it goes bad at a certain point.
Does it though?
I mean, I've never had rice go bad.
Yeah.
I presume it does at some point though.
Yeah, no, probably.
But yeah, there's a lot of different options there. One of my favorite tips that I've kind of taken through is anytime you are at the market, you're buying food, which I think most people, it's probably 1 to 2 weeks. One thing I like to throw in there is like, just kind of budget in is buy just a bottle of spice, or maybe you do it every 2 weeks, or every time you're at the market, just think about, am I gonna buy a new spice today? Because I think what ends up happening is you look at the rack of spices and you're like, it's really expensive to buy all these spices at once.
Yeah.
But if you buy it one at a time at home, you'll notice you start building up a bit of a collection. And if you see a new one come up, you're like, oh, I really want to try that. It gives you that opportunity to try different tastes, even if you're using a similar base of food every time. At least that's the way I've tended to do my sort of meal prep in that way.
I will say, though, like, that only really works if you're someone that likes cooking.
It's a fair point.
So, like, for you, you're seasoning, like, I don't know, steaks, chicken, stuff all the time. So, like, having a variety of spices to choose from for you is like nice. But like for me, I'm never really cooking raw protein by myself. So like, yeah, I can have like the essentials, like like salt and pepper and like, I don't know, cinnamon and other spices for like, the things that I do really enjoy cooking or like need for like everything. But like, if I know that like I'm never gonna be seasoning steak, then like it's not worth it for me to buy a bottle even if it's like spread out. Like I don't need 5 different spices to cook with steak because I'm not making steak that regularly.
That's a good call out.
So like, yes, experiment and like if you want to spend stuff on like spices and things like that, like yes, absolutely, like spread it out and experiment like that. But like if you're like I'm just buying this oregano because it feels like an adult should have oregano in their house. Like, don't just do it because you feel like you should have spices in your house. Like, do it if you're actually going to use them.
Yeah, very fair point. I will say too, even with I'll call it, like foundation food, like eggs is probably a really good example of this. Honestly, if you're good with just like salt and pepper and that's all you want around your kitchen, nothing wrong with good salt and pepper on eggs, honestly. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's definitely a good call out, especially to your earlier point, where you're buying probably mostly a lot of frozen food, and you're kind of cooking from there. A lot of that is already pre-seasoned too.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
which I guess for me is why, like, I love Trader Joe's because they have a lot of good frozen food, and I think also like relative to most grocery stores, like their produce and like all the other stuff you buy there. I know it like used to be more expensive, but now it feels like it's kind of on par with other grocery stores.
I've heard that from other people too, that it has come down in price and it's downright reasonable for some of their food now.
Yeah. So for me, that's where I like to go to get like my bananas, my pears, things like that. But then also get like my frozen lunches or dinners or whatever. Because I feel like they have a lot of unique stuff. But, like, I wouldn't necessarily, like, find at Target. But then, like, also, I do go to Target for, like, my frozen stuff. But I never go to Target for, like, my produce. Because I feel like it's less quality there.
They also have, I think, a cool benefit of, I'm going to say places like Trader Joe's, is they also tend to have their own, like, in-house brand.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, their version of the food, it may be worse, it could be better, just depends on what it is. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, though, it is just cheaper than what's called the brand name food.
Yeah.
I think that's a big, whether it be Costco, whether it be Trader Joe's, I think even Target has their own in-house brand as well. Mm-hmm. It's Good and Gather, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And if you look at those as options, you could potentially get a similar meal to the brand name. It could be better, it could be worse. You just kind of have to experiment a little bit with that.
Yeah. I do get my Dino Nuggies at Costco. Like, if you're going to do frozen food too, like, there's no downside to buying in bulk.
That's a fair point.
Because it's frozen already. Like, you can't, it's not going to go bad.
I think we should also, in general, I think we should talk about sort of the utility of having, if you have a freezer, and let's say you want to try cooking your own food. Or honestly, even if you're doing the frozen food route, having a freezer is one of those things you can kind of throw anything into the freezer for the most part, and it will last, I think easily 4 to 5 times longer than it normally would have lasted.
Yeah.
And that could be a major benefit if you have if you're buying something in bulk, I think is the best example. Mm-hmm. You can end up with something lasting a lot longer.
Yeah.
For example, in my chicken example, I think you end up buying somewhere between like 20 to 30 ounces of chicken or something like that at Costco. You buy a lot. Mm-hmm. And you can take some of the packs, chuck them in the freezer, and they'll last a long time. And you don't have to think about it. You could just cook one and then defrost it, etc. You'll get a process in place.
Yeah. And I think too, if you're someone that doesn't like cooking or like doesn't like necessarily like the prepackaged frozen meals at the grocery store, I haven't met anyone that's ever done it, but I've heard it as like a concept in that like you can go, like, say you like love, I don't know, Chipotle. And like you're okay with eating Chipotle every day. It's actually a lot cheaper to order Chipotle catering and then just freeze all the burritos.
Interesting.
And then you just like thaw/eat and reheat a burrito for lunch every day. And that's like way more cost effective than like if you're going to be going to Chipotle on your lunch break every day anyway. It's way cheaper to just freeze it, thaw it, eat it by ordering the catering than it would be if you're someone that like really loves eating out or like wants your Chipotle fix or whatever. Then like that's a much more cost effective way to like quote unquote meal prep without having to like put in the work at the end of the day to like cook something for the rest of the week.
I've never heard of it, but actually it's interesting sounding, to be honest. And the food is probably going to be what you expect. I'm going to say what you expect it to be. Whereas you can screw up cooking.
Yeah, that's true.
That's something that can happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't done it. I haven't like heard of anyone that's done it specifically, but I have like heard of it as being an option for people out there that don't want to make the trek to the grocery store and are okay with eating the same exact thing every single day.
And if you have a microwave, it's pretty easy to defrost it straight out of the freezer too.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of options. And I think the important thing is finding what works for you. I think one of the things that can really get caught up in this is it does take time to do meal prep. You know, whether you're cooking, if you're cooking straight from raw, for example, it can take time to do that. And even frozen food, right? If you kind of don't plan your day correctly, let's say you like to air fry your food, that still takes 10 minutes. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if you kind of forget to do it and then you're like, oh, now it's 9 p.m. at night, you may not want to run your air fryer at night for whatever reason. I think it's important to note that a big part of this is kind of setting time aside and I actually just from the start figuring out what is my meal prep plan going to be. Mm-hmm. If you're going to buy frozen food, if you're going to buy raw food, if you're going to go the route of doing catered food, mm-hmm. having a plan in place for how you're going to approach it rather than you come home and you're like, oh, my fridge and my freezer, everything is empty and I just don't have food. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's a lot of times how you end up in the situation where now you're like, well, I guess I'm going out for food tonight.
Yeah.
And now you're going to spend a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. Once in a while, going out to eat can be fun.
Yeah, of course.
But you definitely don't want to end up doing that every night, especially since going out, even to some fast food places, can get quite pricey.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing it all the time. Mm-hmm. But another one I actually wanted to bring up was, I think a really common one is getting coffee every day or tea. If you go to, like, let's say Starbucks, I think they're probably the best example of this, where you go and you get your daily fix of Starbucks every day. One thing I kind of wanted to bring up as an option potentially is making your own coffee or tea at home. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying go and get, like, you know, a coffee grinder and go through the whole process of making your own coffee, right? But there is some benefit to potentially looking to invest in something like honestly, like a Keurig machine. Mm-hmm. There's problems there. You have the little disposable plastic cups that are not great for the environment if you go that route. But you could get something like a Keurig. They're fast, they're quick. You don't really need to think about it too much. As long as you have pods, you're good to go, essentially, and running water. Another option, if you want potentially to maybe you're a little more conscious about the plastic cups, or maybe you want different types of coffee than what Keurig offers, you could also get a coffee machine that kind of does the water dripping. I believe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can buy like ground beans and just pour those in, and now you've got coffee. You just need paper filters and that's it. And if you want to make something like tea, it gives you an option to get hot water pretty instantaneously as well.
Yeah. I use primarily my Keurig for like tea and hot chocolate, in that like I won't put a cup in. I'll just like make it go, and then I'll have hot water available, and I'll put like the powder for the hot chocolate or the tea bag in or whatever, and it's very fast.
Yeah.
But a lot cheaper to just buy the tea bag than...
Yeah. I think, and here's the thing too, right? I don't think it's a bad thing. If you are a person that's like, I need my Starbucks every day, I think that's entirely reasonable. If you just want to go to Starbucks, you have a drink there that you really like, maybe you've got a customized one. There's nothing wrong with that either. I think the important part is just making sure that you've kind of built your meal, let's call it your meal prep plan around that too. Acknowledging that, hey, this is going to be a cost that's going to happen every day, and you've built that into the plan.
Yeah,
I think.
Compensate somewhere.
Yeah. And I think it's just important to at least have some sort of plan in place. I think that's kind of the end all be all of this, is have a plan.
Yeah.
And know what you're doing. I think even talking about, we talked about buying appliances, we talked about buying cookware. Another important aspect is also having storage containers.
Yeah, like Tupperware.
Yeah, Tupperware.
Yeah, so Tupperware can get space consuming. I don't know if that's really a term, but it it kind of builds up if you buy a lot of different shapes and brands and styles or whatever. And I think now, especially more than ever, there's this like awareness about microplastics. And like I've become kind of reluctant to start putting my leftovers in Tupperware because I'm like, I don't want to reheat this in the microwave in the plastic because then it could, I don't know, seep into food. I don't even know if that's scientifically sound, but I just worry about it.
Yeah. There's a lot of conversations about it right now.
Yeah. So, like, I always think that like a good alternative is glass Tupperware. I really like using glass Tupperware. I've used it. It is like a little heavier to carry around in your lunchbox when I go to work, but like to me, it's worth it because what I used to do to avoid the microplastics is like I would bring the Tupperware in and then I'd transfer everything to like a paper plate and put it in the microwave. And like with the glass Tupperware, like I don't have to do that anymore. I just throw the Tupperware into the microwave and like go and eat out of that. So like there is glass Tupperware out there that I think is a little better, quote unquote, better for you if, that is a concern of yours that I think like personally, I think everyone should be switching to glass Tupperware because I think it's a good alternative. And it also, is reusable and rewashable. And it doesn't get that funky, like, if you microwave marinara sauce from your pasta in the plastic ones and it's like stained with this weird shade of red.
They kind of look gross after a bit.
And you just never want to use it again. Like, that doesn't happen with the glass. So
more breakable, though.
That is true. But the ones that, like, I have, they're very thick glass. So, like, even if I dropped it, I could not see it, like, shattering.
Got it. Yeah, I will fully admit, I do use plastic Tupperware still.
Which is okay if that's what you have,
It is weirdly a unironically, the other item I just thought about right now that I think is useful to have in kitchen, at least one, is a cutting board. I have the same stance on cutting boards, where I think a wood cutting board is the cutting board you should have. Plastic ones exist, and they are generally cheaper, but wood cutting boards, you don't have the issue with microplastics, and in my opinion, they last a lot longer. If you go the wooden route, they are a tad more expensive, and they're also better for your knives, I believe. That's actually another thing as well.
Are you ever concerned about, like, because when I use wood cutting boards, like, my fear is like, okay, there's raw chicken on this. Am I going to be able to scrub it without the, like, raw chicken juices seeping into the wood? I ever think about that?
I haven't until right now.
Oh, to be honest. So sorry.
I tend to scrub my boards down pretty well, so I'm hopeful that I will have that issue. And now I'm thinking about that. And
sorry. I mean, granted, like, plastic can absorb too, just like the way the Tupperware absorbs the marinara sauce. Yeah.
It's very true. Between the two, the one nice thing about the plastic one over the wooden one, and this is going to depend if you have, and actually, even if you just have a sink, cleaning wooden cutting boards, that entire point is much more painful than the plastic one. Because plastic one, if you have a dishwasher, you throw it in the dishwasher. If you don't, they're generally pretty thin, whereas wooden ones in particular are pretty thick, usually.
Heavy,
yeah, and can be heavy. I think that's something to talk about, like, from a counter saving space. If the only thing that's going to fit on your counter and the only thing that's reasonable for you to clean is plastic, probably nothing wrong with that. I will say, from a storage perspective, I definitely still use plastic. I will say I have gotten rid of plastic stuff that doesn't fit inside of each other, though. When you're storing them.
Oh yeah, that's so annoying.
When you have one container that's bigger than the other, but it's only slightly bigger. That's the sort of thing I just always tickles me every time I see it. I'm like, well, I'm guessing getting rid of one of you.
I will say, like, most professional chefs are using wooden cutting boards, so they have to be sanitary,
I would think so.
Yeah. So don't mean to, like, cause fear in anyone, just something I've thought about.
We're definitely not professional chefs. I think throughout this you've probably seen that. But I do think there is some validity to talking about, especially because when I first moved out, I had very limited kitchen space. I think I just had a sink, actually, in my old place. No, dishwasher, nothing like that. I did have a fire stove, and I will die on the hill that fire stoves are far superior to any other type of stove.
Really? Okay.
There's just, if you are cooking from raw, and I'm sure if you've cooked on, in particular, induction stoves, which is, I think they're called induction stoves, or the electric coil stoves. I can't remember the specific name of it. It's a very old style stove. It's an electric coil. I think induction's the new ones that don't have any coils. I think it's just like a clear surface.
Yeah.
The old style like coil stoves are terrible. They don't really maintain heat very well. So in one moment, it could be the perfect temperature for whatever you're cooking. If you're cooking, as a good example, eggs, I think is a pretty common thing that a lot of people cook. Eggs are also very affordable from a like how many you can just buy at once perspective. So that's a good tip if you want an easy source of protein. If you use something like the coil stove, though, you'll find that certain parts of your pan, regardless of what kind of pan you buy on those coil stoves, will simply not heat up to the correct temperature, and you'll end up with one side of your food overcooked, one side not cooked, and it can create a lot of problems if you're cooking something that requires consistent temperature, like eggs, actually, because you end up, half of your egg ends up sticking to the pan because it's burnt on. Whereas I have found fire stoves, and truth be told, I think I've only used an induction stove once or twice in my life. Fire stoves tend to be very consistent comparatively. Assuming your pan can maintain the heat across consistently. I find fire stoves to be the best kind of stove, but if you don't have one built into the place you're in, you might end up just having to use the next best thing. And if you have a coil stove, you make it work. I will 100% say I've been living with a coil stove, and I have made it work. You just need to learn how yours heats. And sometimes that is not fun.
But I think kind of, throughout this episode, the overarching theme is like, just plan to work with what you have and like what your goals are. So like, whatever stove you have, just be mindful of that. Budget enough time, like figure out how you're going to make what you want to make. With, the funds you have, budget what you want to buy, how you want to buy it, whether it's frozen, raw, leftovers from eating out, or even like catered food. And kind of also just plan like, the after plan. Like what Tupperware are you going to use? How are you going to get this to work? How are you going to reheat this later? What do you need to have on your countertop to make sure you are feeding yourself the way you want to be?
Yeah. And I think the other thing is be kind to yourself too. It is really difficult, I think especially early on, to get on the plan, the planning stage, actually building out what is my lunch going to look like? What's my dinner look like? What's my breakfast going to look like, right? Am I going to eat all three of those meals? But be kind to yourself and set a goal for yourself. Make it so that you're able to actually do it consistently. And hey, once in a while, you're going to mess up. You're going to be like, forgot to go to the grocery store today. I don't have food at home. I guess we're getting whatever fast food happens to be open this late.
Yeah.
And if that happens, it happens.
Yeah.
But at the same time, stay to it. And I think the benefits of meal prep or whatever plan you set yourself to will just make it easier to not have to approach food and be, well, what am I going to eat tonight, right?
Yeah. In college, I used to really like, at the like Sunday night or at the beginning of the week, I would cook pasta, and I would cook like a pound or a pound and a half of spaghetti or whatever. And then I would just kind of like portion that out into like whatever Tupperware I had. And then every night I just grab one of the Tupperwares and eat that much pasta. And so like, because I'm the kind of person that like, I don't mind eating the same thing every night. I'm
in the same boat as you.
As long as like, I don't have to do the mental work of like, what am I going to eat? I don't mind if it's the same thing. So like, even just like, say you do want to like try to start cooking or cooking more protein or something like that. Like still like making that pound of pasta at the beginning of the week, just in case you decide, Thursday night, you're sick of cooking, like you're just too tired from work and you don't want to do it. At least you have that in the fridge as your backup.
I think that's a good call out. Like one cool thing about meal prep is I think it allows you to kind of look forward to like, oh, I'm going to go eat out now. I think it gives you a lot more options, and it makes going out food kind of more fun, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
Mm-hmm.
There are times Emily and I don't mind eating the same thing every night. Maybe you do mind that. And I think that's where you get into like, okay, well, planning out maybe Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, I'm eating this thing, maybe Wednesday, Friday. You have options there, right?
Yeah.
And then when you go out, you can make a going out day. Like, hey, today I'm going to go eat out for one of my meals. And it's kind of a reward for doing the rest of the meal
And then that still helps you because if you have leftovers, that's one extra meal you don't have to worry about.
There you go. There's benefits all around.
Yeah.
But I think the major thing is just plan it out. Try to plan it out and be kind to yourself if it takes getting on that bandwagon a little bit hard. It can be tough. There are nights you're like, you get home, you're like, if you cook food like I do, you're like, I don't want to cook tonight.
Yeah.
And that happens. And sometimes it's okay if you just say, now I'm going to eat out because I don't feel like cooking. I've got food in the fridge.
Yeah.
I don't want to cook it tonight, though.
Yeah.
That's going to happen.
That's valid. And I think every time I do even go grocery shopping, too, I always stop by the frozen, like, pre-cooked dinners, and I'm like, grab one emergency dinner. Just in case the pasta doesn't work out, or, I decide I don't want to have, spaghetti for the fourth night in a row, or, for whatever reason, I don't have time to, like, make anything or whatever. Just having like backups that you can kind of use consistently when all else fails, so that you don't have to be like disappointed in yourself and you're like, no, this is okay because I planned for this. So really, I'm still doing everything right.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
My favorite is I do the one frozen pizza in the freezer that you just have
at all times.
Yeah, at all times. You don't feel like cooking. Hey, you fire up the oven, you throw it in, and then in a good like 10 minutes, you've now got pizza and leftovers probably from that pizza. So you're not eating the whole thing. Yeah. So you have a lot of options, and we just kind of want to talk through our experiences, especially if you're going to be moving out on your own at some point, and maybe you're like, well, what do I buy now? Because that's something when I moved out, I had no idea what I was going to be buying. It was just I had to just buy things. I did get gifted a rice cooker. That was one of the first things, going back to the original thing, and I've just had a rice cooker this whole time.
Yeah. Great housewarming gift if you're looking for ideas.
I can't even complain. It honestly is the one appliance I think through everything has stuck around the longest for me, which is kind of funny.
That's impressive.
Yeah. It works. It does the thing I need it to do. It's easy to clean, actually. I'm going to point that out.
Really?
You pull out all the different components. Some of them can be dishwashed, some of them you just hand wash. I think the hardest thing to clean is the pot, to be honest, because rice can get sticky once in a while, brown or white. It just gets sticky and you wash it down, but it's mostly water.
Okay.
So, anyways, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Practically 30. Hopefully you learned some things. Maybe you're shouting at the skies saying they missed my favorite appliance, and that's 100%. I know a few people genuinely who say that everyone should have a wok. Not even joking. They're very good for, honestly, you just throw food in and you stir it up and they can make some good meals. I know a lot of people who are super into that.
I could see that, yeah.
Not my personal thing, but I get it. I also have a cast iron though, so take that for what you will.
Since I've known him, Tristan has really been preaching about this cast iron thing.
If you want to go down a rabbit hole of cooking food in a very specific way, I highly recommend the cast iron. If you don't want to clean something or carry something that is, on its own probably 20 to 30 pounds, I don't recommend the cast iron. But if you want a cool thing to cook with,
it's good for camping too.
It's true.
By the way, yeah.
I would recommend if you do want. Actually, that's a good call.
Yeah.
Buy a cool, just one cool cooking item and just play around with it. That's a recommendation just for me personally. I like the fact that I've learned how to use a cast iron. I think it's fun. You have this one, to your point of making a fun meal for yourself once in a while.
Yeah.
Get a weird appliance that you can do some stuff with. Yeah. There's certainly nothing wrong with that.
I've always kind of wanted to use an ice cream maker. I've had opportunities, I know, and I still haven't done it. But throwing it out there, that's an interesting one.
That's a cool one. You make your own ice. Oh, make it any flavor you want. Ooh, make some weird flavors. I feel like. What would be the weird flavor you would run? If you had to choose one weird one.
I don't know. What would yours be?
I feel like it would have to be something that is I couldn't find in the grocery store. But at the same time, I like Neapolitan and I like mint. I'm pretty generic when it comes to ice cream. Rocky Road is my personal favorite. I guess if I had to choose one, maybe I would try making something like a tea based, like Earl Grey ice cream. I would do an Earl Grey ice cream.
Oh,
That'd be my choice.
Okay.
I don't. Maybe that's not weird though.
I don't know. Maybe like I really like lemon bars. So like a lemon ice cream, but with like crumble mixed into it.
Ooh. Oh, you can add any topping you want too.
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe Earl Grey ice cream with like scone, like the like dry cookies. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they become like too moist though. I don't know.
I think a lot of people too are gonna like, especially if you do like smoothies, protein powder, things like that. Like blenders are incredibly important for some people. Not for me because I don't do it, but I could see like a blender being essential to some people's lifestyles.
I do own a blender.
Yeah.
I love my blender.
Yeah.
I agree with that statement. I think I like blenders. I think though, if I had to choose an appliance to have around, it does take a lot of counter space. That's the one thing about a blender. There are smaller ones. I think there are smaller blenders. I think my blender just happens to be kind of large because it doubles as a food processor. But you could get something like the Magic Bullet. Genuinely. Yeah. So I like the blender. If you like smoothies. I know a lot of people that don't like smoothies though either.
Oh.
Yeah, they don't like the texture. So I could see somebody not being into. But if you like a blender, there's a lot of good options and they last forever if you get a pretty decent one. My one recommendation, make sure your blender has the horsepower to actually do what you're trying to do though. That's something I've seen a lot of people not quite get right. If you're trying to blend something like ice, that is something like one of those like cheap blenders is not gonna be able to do very well. But if you're just blending like liquids together or things like protein powder, probably doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Anyways, so that's practically 30. Leave your comments below about what you would like to see next. What weird ice cream flavor ideas you have. Y'all are probably much more creative and you have cool things that you would put into ice cream that we probably can't even think of. And if you have any other recommendations for appliances you think are essential, or utensils or cookware, or things that you're just like, I can't live without this, and I don't understand how anyone else lives without it, throw it down in the comments below.
Or if you have tried the frozen catering thing, I'd love to hear from someone that has actually tested it.
Yeah. Let us know below what you do to meal prep. But make sure you like, you follow, you subscribe, whatever platform you're on. Do the thing. Just ding the button.
We appreciate it.
We do. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.